I'm Sajjad and I come from Pakistan.
You have worked for the WHO, right?
Yeah. So I was reading about India and South Asia, Bangladesh. But when you go to South, like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, so the health indicators are like really high. It's like completely a different country. After watching JBIM, I read about the South cinema, and I think the South cinema, in terms of like social issues, caste issues, I think South cinema is touching a lot on those issues as compared to Bollywood. That's what my sense is. People would ask me, why is all these international donors interested in eradication of polio in Pakistan? Let's say why? What's the reason? It was a lot, yeah. So people ask me, why this many vaccinations? A lot of the doctors who I was working, they were just considering them ignorant. They hired like a lot of religious scholars and religious scholars and talking about vaccine is good and all those things. There's sometimes like a lot of the time governments are like brutal, right? But then the same government comes and gives you vaccine.
Yeah.
So people would be suspicious. Why the same government is coming and doing this thing?
Yeah. Tamil Nadu, when you consider that, as I mentioned, there is a lot of colonial mentality and colonial aspect of implementing things.
There was not enough competent epidemiologists to lead the government in that program.
வணக்கம், இது அன்பாக்ஸ் பப்ளிக் ஹெல்த். இன்னைக்கு எபிசோட்ல நம்ம கூட பேசுறதுக்கு சஜாத் வந்திருக்காங்க. ஹாய் சஜாத்.
Hi Nusrat, how are you doing?
I'm good. So thanks for coming and talking with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. It's been on the table for a long time. Finally, we are executing it. And
thank you so much. Yeah, it's good.
So, introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Sajjad and I come from Pakistan, from the northwest region of Pakistan. It's called Swat and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and I'm ethnically Pashtun. In India, maybe people know about Pashtun like Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan. He was with Gandhi. Sometimes, he's called so he was in Congress back in the independence movement. So I'm from that ethnicity called Pashtun. And I don't know whether a lot of people would have heard about Malala. So she is from Swat and I'm also from the same district. Yeah.
That's how I knew you basically. You are the boy that knew Malala. So, how did you actually meet her? Met her just once?
No, I haven't met her, but I mean, she is from the same district. We even she became famous, like world famous, we knew about her before. Yeah, and her dad is like, they have he has a private school, and then that he's a social and political activist too. So a lot of people know him from before too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and also your father knew the neurosurgeon who treated Malala when she took the bullet, right?
Oh yeah. That was a tragic time. Yeah. And then after that she was airlifted to like in the air ambulance. But before that, he just knew that. I think he was a famous neurosurgeon, so he was just called to assess her situation at that time. Yeah. I'm a medical doctor. I did my MBBS, and and then after that I did MPH in global health from University of Arizona as a Fulbright scholar, and now I'm doing a PhD in environmental health, and we'll talk about it later. Yeah.
Yes, we should talk about it. So before we talk about what you do, your PhD, and before we talk about public health, can you tell where you are from, your place? How is it back there in Pakistan?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it is in the northwestern region, and it's a mountainous region, and it's usually like the weather is nice, cold, and Swat is known for it's a tourist place. So we have like mountains, we have pine trees, pine forests, and it snows on the mountains. So when I like here in Indiana, when I don't see mountains, so it's like kind of unusual for me because I'm used to mountains and like sunsets across the mountains.
Yes.
And it's nice. We have like a big river. People would go in the evening to the river just to see, just to hang out, just to have a good time. And then I think the winters were harsh, but I don't think that much harsh. When I was growing up, and we would get snow too. Like I remember once we had like 1 feet or more than 1 or 2 feet of snow. And when you go up north into the mountains to higher elevation, the place is known as Kalam. It's like a really famous place in Pakistan. People come there to enjoy the snow, and also in the summer it's like really nice weather, and we have, I think it's we have a ski resort. It's called, yeah. So people come to ski too. So
So it's a touristy.
it's a touristy area, but
Okay.
another thing is there, and it's also really fertile and a lot of agriculture and orchards too. So the economy is good, I think, as compared to other places in Pakistan. I think it's good, and historically we were ruled by like it was a state, Swat state,
Okay.
until 1969, I believe. So until that time we were ruled by a ruler, and he was progressive, I guess. So
Okay.
we have lots of schools, and our first college was from 1954, and it was good. The standard was good. Even the hospital was built, the big hospital, in the 1940s. So, and once when I was working with WHO, so I went into like a really far up place, and the dispensary, the health dispensary, was from 1964. So it was made from his time. So yeah,
Okay.
this is my background. Yeah, it's a nice place, I
Nice
guess.
place.
Yeah.
I see a lot of similarities here, especially considering the education, public health aspect, because TN has a long history of public health as an institution as well as public health activism. From where I come from, Tamil Nadu, the southernmost state in India. So I understand yours is a predominantly agricultural and thriving economy. It is slightly different. I mean, from where I come from, that's slightly different in that aspect. Ours is an agricultural as well as an industrialized society. So, since you're telling it's an agricultural, what's your diet like? It's mostly vegetarian, and is it spicy like us? Is rice a major part of your
I
diet?
think, yeah, I think it's a good question because because I think it is we have an agriculture society, and we have a lot of water too. So we have rice. I think it's the same with southern India, right? I think so. So yeah, so we have our most of like our diet historically or traditionally it was based on vegetables and dairy products, because we have the agriculture is like, I mean, it's an we have dairy products, a lot of dairy, like milk, yogurt, ghee, and other things that we call in local names. I don't know how would you call it, but like ghee, yeah. But after that too, like other things too, like lassi, and we call it different names. So that, and then rice, and then like local herbs that we use in our rice. Like there are different kinds of local herbs that are mixed with rice, and also spinach. Nowadays it's mostly spinach, but
spinach.
yeah, and then sometimes we would eat meat, but it would be kind of like not a lot. Like you once in a while just chicken, and once in a while meat. But now, I mean, as we know, due to globalization and due to the intensive agricultural production, everything is changing. Now people eat a lot of chicken, a lot of meat. But historically, it was mostly vegetarian. You are right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also have a lot of dairy in our food, and I make buttermilk whenever you come over.
Yeah.
I think it's a misnomer, basically made with yogurt. It's a yogurt drink, but we call it buttermilk. So now tell us about what was it growing up, entertainment wise. From where I come from, it was a coastal town, so all our activities revolved around coastal town. You have a get together, you meet at the beach. You want to play, you go to the beach, and my diet. Growing up, it was mostly seafood because it was way cheaper than vegetables or any other meat. So, how was your entertainment like?
Yeah, so I think I mean, as I said, I don't know I mentioned or not, but I grew up in a village, so it was a village community. It was tightly knit community, but still we had places like playgrounds too, both in school and also in near our home. So we would just go out. We would play cricket. I mean, yeah. So cricket is every everyone would be playing it. So we would be playing cricket. But as I mentioned before, we have a river, like a riverside. So a lot of people would go to the riverside to play in the playground, like cricket, football, hockey, all those things too. And also the local games too, like hide and seek and stuff like that. And then as our society is like we were still, do you know joint family system? So all of our cousins and like first cousins, they would come, maternal cousin, paternal cousin. So we were like, I mean, 5 uncles and 3 or 4. So I mean, so yeah, so when all of us would come together, so it would be still a team, so so it would be kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was nice.
So, do you have theaters? Do you go to watch movies?
No, not in our villages. I mean, we don't have theater in my village.
Okay.
But there was one,
Yeah.
like it was 25 kilometers from my place in the one or two. But I don't know, like it's not. We don't have the theater going culture in Pakistan. We had the local Pashtun cinema, Pashto cinema, but I don't think it's as good. Maybe I'm biased. I don't know much about it, but it's not as thriving as South cinema or even Bollywood too. But I mean, we don't.
You
use it.
like Bollywood movies?
Yeah, I do South. I like South cinema too. I mean, I watched with subtitles obviously, but it's good. But we don't have the culture of cinema going in at least the place that I come from. Yeah, and it was kind of like people would watch Bollywood movies, but it would be like pirated and like stealthily. It would not be considered a good thing to watch as you were growing up. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But you have watched Bollywood, right?
Yeah, I have. But regarding entertainment, I just want to mention that Pakistan's TV, Pakistan's television, PTV, it had good shows like series, and we would have like local Pashto series too. So it was a lot of like comedy, and they were good. I just remembered it was like, but people would mostly do TV.
TV.
So I think it's still the common. Yeah, in
Yeah,
Pakistan, we have a lot of Urdu series that good. Like, and I have heard that people watch it in India too.
Yeah. Our people watch mostly television too. I think when I grew up, I just watched 2 or 3 movies with my family together in the theater.
Okay.
But mostly it's just TV.
Okay, so yeah.
And you mentioned about you watched Southern movie. What Southern movies have you watched? Indian, South Indian movie.
Yeah. So I think the one that comes to mind is J Beam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was good. It was like kind of, yeah, I think I liked it. It was good. Yeah, and I watched others too, but I don't like right off my mind. I don't remember it. But after watching J Beam, I read about the South cinema, and I think the South cinema, in terms of like social issues, caste issues, I think South cinema is touching a lot on those issues as compared to Bollywood. That's what my sense is.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much for saying
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Feel so seen and recognized. So while growing up, apart from this entertainment, did you have specific hobbies? For example, in my school, I used to go play badminton, and then there were options for music and dance, but then my parents didn't encourage it. So, what were your hobbies like?
I don't know whether we can call it hobbies or not, but we were playing, like as you mentioned, badminton. We were playing cricket, and then I mean, like you just watch. I don't know, like how can we say what is hobbies?
It's not more streamlined. It was
Yeah, just watching. I was
culturally oriented.
I was interested in news too, and then also just playing cricket and badminton and those things. But I mean, I don't know. Like later on, I got interested in reading books, but at that time, I was not doing it a lot.
Okay, we should talk about reading books. So, what Indian authors have you read and who do you like?
Yeah, there are a lot of Indian authors that I like, but I think to start with, I would mention Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru, the India's prime minister. His book Glimpses of World History. It's a like I have read it twice. Yeah, it's
Something.
yeah. I mean, I read it. It was like more than 1,000 pages. But then I said after like 8-9 months, I wanted to read it again. It was so good. It talked about history from like Eastern perspective or like from Indian perspective. So it was really good. And then I think it influenced me a lot in my life because I read it while I was in my medical college in 3rd year and then again in 4th year. So that, and then also Arundhati Roy. Yeah, I started her from her novel like God of Small Things. But after that, I read most of her fiction, non-fiction books too. So
what do you think about Arundhati Roy's? Do you see upper caste person's appropriation when she talks about people, the groundwork, or what do you think?
I think about caste. I think I think what I like the major thing that I got from her books was the reach towards like everyone, because she is so famous. She got the Booker Prize, and then she later on, back in like 10 years back or more than that, she wrote The Doctor and the Saint about Ambedkar and Gandhi. It was kind of like like a foreword or a long foreword. It was like 140 pages or more than that to Ambedkar's essay about caste, like annihilation of caste. So I think for me, I learned about caste from her, like from her writings and the way she discussed it and the way it was played during Ambedkar's time and during Gandhi's time. Like, so I think for me that was good. That was really good. Like the global outreach from person from coming from Pakistan as an outsider who doesn't know much about caste. So I learned about that, and then on my own, I read more about Ambedkar and his writings, and so for me it was a good introduction. But I understand like the social capital of a person from upper caste and just starting. It's the same about like class issues too, like upper class people talking about like in the like in Marxist terms. I'm talking about that. A lot of people who have access to books and readings and degrees, and then they become influenced and become leftist and become Marxist. So most of them come from like upper class, like a lot of them. It's the same in India too. Yeah, same in my country too. Like a lot of famous authors were from privileged backgrounds. But still, I think to conclude, I think that I learned a lot about caste and social issues from Arundhati Rai, like let's say globalization, corporations, and also if you would have heard about the Walking with the Comrades, where she went into to the Dandakaryana, Dandakaryana forest and spent a couple of weeks with the I don't know whether they are called Exilites or not, but So that book was good too. Yeah, so I learned a lot about all these issues from her writings. Yeah.
So yeah, we see it as a problem of appropriation, but after talking with you, I realized that on one hand, we have to increase visibility for people from the oppressed sector. On the other side, people who have voice and have visibility should need to talk about more, so that people in the global stage, they know about issues from the South and South Asian community.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what she calls in her interviews, it's called Project of Unseeing, right?
The great project.
The Unseeing. So if we take out any, like a lot of these cliched Bollywood movies, they don't mention caste.
Caste, yes.
Like you just think it's there is no caste in India. Like in the US, when you like when I know some people who watch, let's say, Bollywood movies, and you mention caste to them, they would say, "Oh, it's not portrayed in the movies." The same with the mainstream books too. I if I remember correctly, I don't know, like Nehru brought it up, but not at length. I think I don't remember exactly, but I think so. So like when we are in mainstream, we don't talk about caste issue. Caste issue is the same. Like when you go to Bollywood, it's like nothing. So that's why she called it Project of Unseeing. But you can talk more about like what do you when you say the appropriation. So what do you mean by like that? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Appropriation is, I think, for example, now they had the Oscar awarded to the best document, The Elephant Whisperers.
Oh, okay.
The directors and the producers, they went to receive the award, but the actual people who starred in that and people who are the soul and the characters of the story, they are just in the background. And after a lot of noise, they invited them to some hotel and they took a photo of them with the award and they posted it. So and also I think you have read Paul Freire in his book Pedagogy of the Oppressed. So I strongly believe that a solution comes from the oppressed, and only the oppressed can humanize the oppressor. So as good as it is that people with visibility and from the oppressor or from those who have a voice talk about these issues, I also think people who are from that background need to be given voice and stage and platform to talk.
Yeah, I agree. And as it's also like the lived experience too. Yeah, because as it happens in a lot of contexts too. Like some people from, let's say, the US or UK, they would just come and try to do research or write books about Pakistan or like in a village. So it's kind of, there are a lot of this. I mean, a lot of those issues, like the way Edward Said mentioned Orientalism too.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's kind of there too. Yeah.
Yes. So talking about caste, what was the role of religion for you at home? For me, when growing up, ours was not an Orthodox society. We were culturally Tamils. Tamil Nadu is the place I come from. We were culturally Tamils and spiritually Muslim. So until I was like first grade or something, my mother didn't know to read Arabic. She used to write the Arabic verses, Quran verses in Tamil, and then she used to recite that when we go out, when we sit to eat, when one of us is sick. She used to read from the Tamil version of the Arabic verses that she has written. And then she went to madrasa. And when I was 5th grade or something, she started wearing parda. There was this wave of Tawheed Jamaat and other Jamaats too. They were becoming more and more orthodox. And I see it as coinciding with the global Wahhabism wave sponsored by Saudi. Because from where I come from, Malapalayam, people were, the men used to go to Saudi and the Middle East to go and work there. So, I mean, through them or somehow there was an influence of Saudi in our religious part of life. So it was getting more and more orthodox, and now we have distanced ourselves from anything that identified us with our local culture. So that's how personally, as well as looking at a big picture, I see the role of religion in my life. So you are a Muslim like me. So how has the religion been within your home and outside your home while growing up and right now?
Yeah. I think, we kind of have same parallel situations too. Like back in the time, like there was like everyone was just a traditional Muslim. They people would go to mosque and they would follow a lot of the religious obligations, but still it was not like kind of militant religiosity. And then after some time, like as you said, due to the Saudi influence, people went there. But in our case, there was kind of like the state support of madrasas. So madrasas, and it was due to the Soviet Afghan jihad, because the US and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia were supporting the Mujahideen back in the back in the 80s, and that's why they were trained here in Pakistan and sent, and there was like kind of a global jihadist movement. People from all over the world were coming to Pakistan to be showered and then sent over to Afghanistan. So all there, and like I can give an example of like my village. Our village doesn't have a madrasa, right? People were going, people were learning about Quran, and they were like the traditional scholars, the religious scholars who went into, like they were scholars. The person from whom I learned to read Quran was a scholar. He went into madrasa for like 10 years, and he was a religious scholar, but in a traditional sense, I would say. We would go to him. A lot of people from the neighborhood would go to the mosque and learn about Quran, and he would teach us, right? But we didn't have like madrasa going there in the afternoon or something. We would go in the morning or in the evening, but it was kind of that, and everyone in the village was doing that. But now we have like 2 or 3 madrasas over there. They're not like residential ones, but still they are madrasas, and they are like the local religious people who come and teach and that. So I think the overall religiosity in the society has increased in our places, in our culture too in general. And as you mentioned that it influences culture, like we loses our own traditional values, because if you go to Wahhabism or like Salafi religion, they don't like rituals. So a lot of the rituals are kind of demonized. And like, let's say people would go to different saints and, to ask for forgivings or just ask for, make dua and stuff,
Yeah.
But nowadays they're so demonized, you cannot even do that because it's considered shirk, right?
Yeah.
So, these are religious issues. We might not be that, but that conversant about talking about it. But just in general, I say the literal interpretation of religion has gone up in our society too.
Yes.
But for you, I would just say like growing up and just reading about Hindu-Muslim issues and like partition of Pakistan and India. So how does it in like the place that you come from, just in general, like talking about, I don't think it's like a majority Muslim place, right?
Yes. This is not a majority.
Yeah, so how are the relations between different
Communities?
communities?
So we were, in my village, it's completely Muslims there. But then there were Tamil Muslims, and we were more culturally oriented. And our food is basically Tamil food. It was not so much meat. It was a lot of vegetarian food when growing up. People used to ask, you're a Muslim and you're not eating meat here.
Yeah.
So And where I grew up in Kadalur, a coastal town. There you have the influence of Christian schools, because the Europeans came and settled mostly in the coastal towns. So we have a lot of Christian missionary schools there and a lot of Christian people. So in coastal towns, you could see Christians from the scheduled caste who converted to Christianity. So I had I had experience growing up with both Hindus and Christians in the coastal towns. My mom and my dad, they were all very tolerant. There is an exchange of culture. As you said, the rituals. We used to have Fatiha, praying to the, or just requesting to the dead, or just remembering them. And there was also Kandri. There was a festival called Kandri in my village where there is horses and we go around. They go around in the horse and they used to get arms. People used to donate when it's stopping in front of each of their houses. And there was a lot of tolerance, lot of culture, lot of color, and lot of diversity.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And
Okay.
but all of that is slowly going down. There is conservatism on rise on both sides, on Hinduism as well as Muslims. And with that, I cannot say how much experience I have about the Christianity there, but both Christianity and Muslims, you could see both upper caste and lower caste people in TN. It all depended on who they were originally and who they got and where they got converted to.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. And talking about schools, how was your school experience there in Pakistan? Was it a co-ed? Do you study with the girls? Are girls and boys studying together in the school? How was your school days?
Yeah, I think in the village that so I went into a private school. We have both public and private schools, and when I was growing up, I think the quality of education was kind of similar, I would say, because my dad also went into a public school. Several of my cousins went. But then it's interesting that there was kind of a phenomenon back in like late 90s that there were lots of like private schools started.
Schools.
So we just,
Same thing in India.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, but it was I mean, when we were until like 7th grade, it was a co-education. But then until 6th grade, I changed my school. I went into the nearest city that I mentioned before, like it's Kanbingora. It's 25 kilometers. But so a couple of classes were like co-education, and then after that it was only boys. But yeah, going into there, and then after that, 11th and 12th grade was in the big city called Peshawar.
No, okay.
Yeah, we call it FSC. I don't know what you guys call it, but we call it FSC, and I did it pre-medical. So,
Oh, okay.
but there was it's called Islamia College Peshawar, and it's one of the famous and prestigious colleges in our
Okay.
in the province. So. Yeah, I mean it was a good experience. I learned a lot about different stuff, different things, and I think overall it was like it was a good experience.
Yeah, the 11th and 12th, when you told that you said about pre-med, you took a pre-med course. I studied a similar thing. I took science and math. Previously, it used to be called pre-university college, but then now it's just high secondary course.
Okay.
And similarly, I studied in a private school as well, a Christian missionary school. The fees used to be pretty low it was high for that time, but then it's thinking about how the context is now. I think it was a cheaper option, though I didn't study in a government school or a public school. But yes, there was a wave of private education.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I don't know why it happened like same in the hospitals too. There were private hospitals before I started. A lot of private hospitals and private schools.
Yes.
I think it's tied to, I mean, I don't know, but I think it's the global new liberalization of the economy in general. I think it's that, like before that, there was Soviet Union and everything was kind of like publicly funded and everything. And they were following like Keynesian economics all over the world too. And then I think after that, World Bank and IMF and everyone comes in and like, privatization is good, yeah. So I think it's tied to that.
Yes, you said you don't know, but you're just offering a lot of insight here, and I like this conversation. So now both of us are doctors by training. So how was your medical college like? What was your experience there, and why particularly public health? How did you transition from clinical to
Yeah.
public health?
I know. So ours was like we had a big batch, like a big class. We were.
Was it a government?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
I mean, the historically and until now, all the good engineering universities. I think it's the same in India, like IITs.
Amen.
Huh?
No, I'm just giving
Yeah.
my vote for the public
Yeah.
schools and colleges.
Yeah, so it's the same in Pakistan. Like all the engineering universities and medical colleges, all are public. So I went into Ayub Medical College,
Yeah.
and it was a public medical college. But we had a big class. It was like 200 people.
Oh,
And
and
it- Yeah, and as you said, it was a co-education. So we start from basic clinical sciences in the first 2 years, and then go on to do pathology and forensic medicine and all those different things and later on. So, but as you mentioned, public health, I think so. We read we have we call it community and preventive medicine. We read it in fourth year along with pathology. So when I in the third year and fourth year, I started reading like books about history and politics and political science and all those things. And it kind of like I'm mostly about history in general. So as I mentioned Nehru before. So and when I read social and preventive side of medicine or community and preventive side, so it just resonated. Like when I was reading about malaria, TB, HIV, and all the like maternal mortality and infant mortality and under five children mortality, and then it was killing like millions of people. All these diseases. And I was saying like, what are we up to? Like, are we doing anything about it? Like, in a clinical side, we would just be treating diseases, right? Just be in a hospital, in a clinic, and treating these diseases. But with public health, I was thinking that I could have more influence. And another thing was I was interested more on the social side, as we now call it social determinants of health. Social or ecological, economic determinants of health or ecological determinants of health. So I got interested in those things, and that's how then I started searching more about public health and reading more about public health. So so that was like how I got interested by reading more about like anyone. I mean, I need to mention the South too over there. So I was reading about India and South Asia, Bangladesh. But when you go to South, like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, so the health indicators are like really high.
Yes.
You just see, oh, it's like completely a different country. Like the infant mortality rate in the under 5, and also women education, women empowerment. All those things are so high. So, and then you search about it, like how it happened. So there's like lots of political and social reasons about that. It's not just out of the blue that, oh, it's good in South. It's tied to colonialism too. Like it was not directly colonized for a long time by the Brits, right?
No, Madras Presidency is one of the oldest presidencies, and the college that I studied in Stanley Medical College was built during the British period. And public health as an institution, it was founded by the British. So our public health institution in our state celebrated 100 years of its 100 years anniversary this year. Yeah, so we have a long history of public health institution and activism.
Yeah, I think Amartya Sen wrote about this phenomena, that why South is better. And I think we can find the link and you can post it in the show notes. It was in New Yorker. It was a long article. It was about like all these things. But I think I remember that he mentioned some like local. I mean, Kerala has the first communist government too in 1957, right? So he was tying kind of to that too, but historically too, the governments that were before that, maybe it was not directly ruled by British in Kerala.
Yes, Madras Presidency is one of the oldest presidencies. So, and the college that I studied in, Stanley Medical College, it used to be called the Kanji Totti Hospital. So, it's Kanji means porridge. So, they used to distribute porridge in that hospital during the famines. So, it came to be called as a porridge distributing hospital. But as you said, Kerala, it has one of the oldest official communist party there. And also in Tamil Nadu, there was the social justice movement. And in South, there has been local governments before even during the British period. So I think we were not that colonial, but to this day in institutions, you could see the colonial influence. in.
Yeah, I was saying this because in the context, if you go to if you talk about UP, Bihar, I mean, there's so much poverty there. They are not developed. So,
Exactly.
Do you know, is there any basic big reasons for that? It's just
I think it was mostly because of lack of political stewarding there, and they didn't have a philosophical basis. I think because for us we had an ideological movement, the social justice movement by Periyar,
oh yeah,
and for which Anna gave political, and for which Anna gave an electoral perspective to it. But I think that there has to be an ideological angle and then a political or an electoral angle to it. And that was what the North lacked, and that was what, and that is where the RSS is succeeding as well. The RSS BJP, one is an ideological wing and another is a electoral wing. And that is how I think I think the strategy is basically from the South, considering that perspective. So
I like this, the way you said it. I think a lot of social movements and political movements do thinking about in Pakistan too, if you have heard about, let's say the party called Pakistan Tahrir, PTI, Pakistan Tahrik Insaf. So they talk a lot about, just the superficial issues, but corruption is bad and everything, but they don't have a big ideology behind it.
exactly.
I really like this point, about the ideology. And as you mentioned, the social movement in the period.
Period.
Yeah. So I think that is important. In the North, I think there are lots of things, but this point is really good. I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. So now coming back to the public health perspective, for us, the community medicine, as you said, we also had a subject called social and preventive medicine, and that was just medicine. I don't think it was about health holistically. So that is the difference that I found working as a physician in a primary health center, and that oriented me towards public health. Frankly speaking, I wanted to study for civil service there. I was preparing for civil service simultaneously while doing my master's in public health. And then COVID came and the civil service training coaching institutes were closed. And that is when I was completely into my public health as a career.
Okay.
So how did you choose to do your public health in US?
Yeah.
And why?
As you mentioned the civil service thing, so I don't know how prestigious it is in India, but in Pakistan, a lot of medical students, when they don't like their medical studies, so they just do the exam.
Exactly.
But it's really prestigious thing for people. I mean, I do not agree to that. I'm not into bureaucracy or anything, because they're just reading all the cliched nationalist stuff about Pakistan and just regurgitating that.
Amen.
Yeah. So, but still a lot of people do that. But for me, I think as the whole journey was starting with books and reading more about the social issues than reading about community and preventive medicine and social aspects of medicine. And I mean, when I know it is not as comprehensive as it should be, the public health classes that we take, but still we had, if you remember, I think it's kind of the same curriculum everywhere, but it's general epidemiology, then specific epidemiology. Then we have maternal and child health policies. And the good thing I remember was going for field visits too. So we would go to let's say primary healthcare centers, we would talk about malaria, about vaccination. We would go to rural health centers. And at one point we also went into a slaughterhouse, because how meat is processed and how clean it is. Yeah. And then to TB centers, so those things, and then at the same time when I read more about for my exam, the book that we were reading, so and also one more, I think one important thing was the Almata Declaration, which was in primary healthcare, healthcare for all by 2000. And I think it's a really 2 or 3 pages declaration, but it's really comprehensive. It talks a lot about social issues, economic issues, and how they're connected to health. And I think currently we also lack that thing. So just coming back, I think that most of the time in medical colleges and in medical schools and everywhere, it's like the biomedical aspect.
Yes.
But it's not
It's
the
not.
whole thing. We need
Yes.
to have like a biosocial aspect
Yes.
too.
Yes.
And that's now it is being emphasized because of the, if you know about, like we talked about social determinants of health. So there was a big commission of social determinants of health. Amartya Sen was also a member of it, and I think Michael Marmot was kind of leading it. So they came up with the idea of like social determinants of health and how like the environment we work and play, and like the children play there, we work there. All these things are related to public health. So I think those were some of the ideas. It was not as comprehensive at that time because I was just reading a little bit. But then I was, after my MBA, after completing the 5 years, we have to do house job. I think you call it something else, but it's like 6 months in medicine, 6 months in surgery. So during that time, as I said, that I became like more politically conscious. So I went into a rally, like it was about, it's a political rally, and I met a professor there, and we started talking about public health, and he said to me, like, do you know about Fulbright scholarship? So, and I said, what is this? He said, it's a really good scholarship, like a big scholarship for Pakistan from the US. So you can just go and apply after attempting GRE. So I think, and that's how I came, and then I applied, and I was lucky I got a scholarship. So I think just overall networking is really important, like just talking to people and like getting advice, because it was not the first person that, because I asked several professors about it before, like several academics and like, writers too that I met. So, but that one was like, it clicked and he told me, and then it worked for me. So I think really networking and talking to people is really important.
And also you met the person in a rally.
Yeah.
For me also, most things in life that I am here, I am where I am because of things that happened incidentally or accidentally. I was just in a search for what felt like my calling, and incidentally things happened to me, and it kept redirecting me, and I'm there finally. And also the thing you mentioned about the public health as an awareness, as I agree that during when I studied, it was mostly medicine oriented, and there was a lot of biological aspect to it. And I think it was mostly because of the training that I had, because public health as a concept has been existing for a long time. It was only that I was not aware of it, and I came to know about the concept and the sentiment only by working in the field, in the primary health center, and also because I started reading about socio-political factors that influenced health. I became conscious of the socio-political aspect, and I think that is how I got directed to public health as well. And how has your experience been working? You have worked for the WHO, right?
Yeah,
So,
World Health Organization.
so how has that influenced you, and what was your experience working for the WHO?
Yeah, as I mentioned that I went, I got a Fulbright scholarship. So I went and studied in University of Arizona, and I did a global health degree. It's called like MPH, Master in Public Health in Global Health. But I took classes in medical anthropology too. So it was called medical anthropology and global health, and one class was just global health, and then one was about like body medicine and everything like. So I got, so my, like the things that I'm talking about now, like the social aspects and like all those things, socioeconomic aspects are like socio-ecological determinants of health. I think a lot of these things came from those classes. I think medical anthropology, as you said, like we didn't know much about it because we were trained on it. I think medical anthropology is really important to be incorporated in even in med school career, I would say. Yeah. So I just did the degree there. I got interested in those things, and I think the classes were really practical too. So they were good. They prepared me for my jobs because it was epidemiology too. Touched on epidemiology, but also on like the health policy aspect. So when I came back, I started working with the World Health Organization in vaccination. Mostly it was about polio eradication, but we were also we were doing measles vaccination, like supervising measles vaccination too. But in general, I think it's another whole topic talking about vaccine too. But it's also like about the vertical programs too. It was good program. I mean, they were like they had their own deliverables. You were kind of following that. But there were a lot of resistance in some places to vaccination. And I'm glad that I had a background of medical anthropology and global health. I was understanding the concerns of the people. Let's say people would ask me, why is all these international donors interested in eradication of polio in Pakistan? Let's say why? Like, what's the reason? Because but then a lot of the doctors who I was working, they were just considering them ignorant, which is bad. Which is wrong, not bad, but it is wrong because they had a genuine question, right? Like, why would someone be interested in that? So I think, and then I would explain it. These are infectious diseases, and if one person is infected and then goes to another country, they can take the infection with you. So basically, they were interested in their own health rather than our health. So once I was talking, and it kind of resonated with the person. And then another aspect is like, why? Because it was like kind of a vertical program. We were doing vaccination, mass vaccination almost every month, like 10 times in the whole year. It was a lot, yeah. So people asking, why this many vaccinations? So Pakistan and Afghanistan are the last polio endemic regions. So they were like kind of doing intensive. It's happened in India until 2012, I guess. So after that, I'm just saying that it was a good experience. I learned about program planning and all those things, but we need to have this angle. And at one point, we were collaborating like government, UNICEF, and WHO. So UNICEF was mostly working on the social side. That was good. So the good thing was they hired like a lot of religious scholars and like at the district level too, but also at the village level too. Like religious scholars and talking about vaccine is good and all those things. And same, it was called like we call it like risk communication. So they were doing that too. And I remember we would go to mosques and talk to people. We would go to communities and talk to people. So about vaccines and why we need to vaccinate. So I think it was overall, it was a good experience. But one thing last thing that I want to mention is the trust thing. That like it was the same government and the same like there's sometimes like a lot of the time governments are like brutal, right? They do military operations. They like, it's happening in India too. It happens in Pakistan too. But then the same government comes and gives you vaccine. So people would be suspicious. Why the same government is coming and doing this thing? And one thing the last thing that I want to mention is the work. Like a lot of the time we would go to villages for vaccination, and they would be saying that when we go to the healthcare center, the primary healthcare center, a lot of the times the people are not there. Like sometimes the doctor is not there, sometimes the technician is not there. And then when it's come to vaccination, so you guys come to our home and try to vaccinate people. So why is this so important, and why not the overall health aspect? So I think we need to talk, like we need to tackle all these things together.
I completely agree. So I have two insights to offer on this. One thing about the trust. I understand in Pakistan there is a military aspect to it for why the government lacks trust. In Tamil Nadu, when you consider that, as I mentioned, there is a lot of colonial mentality and colonial aspect of implementing things, and that makes people lose trust in their government, and that reflects in vaccine hesitancy. So in my brief period working as in the PHC, it was in the foothills of Java, the foothills. So there it's a predominantly Muslim community, and I had, as a junior doctor, I had to, wear hijab, and then to make myself look more Muslim. And then I had to go to schools and other nearby communities to go and or just talk in my PHC about why they should take the measles and rubella vaccine. So the MR vaccine campaign was very intense at that period when I joined the service. So I have experience there as well in risk communication, as you mentioned. And the second thing is about the medical education, the need for revamping the medical education. As I mentioned about medical anthropology, until I started doing public health, no one knew what public health was. I mean, the people around me, even my own colleagues who did medicine with me, they used to ask, oh, you're just doing social and preventive medicine. I still know I'm doing public health. I'm studying epidemiology. And then 6 months or 8 months into my course, COVID happened, bam, and then everyone is talking about epidemiology. And then people realized how important it was, what I was studying and what I was doing. And now talking about your research, what is that you're researching now, and what are you studying currently?
So I'm now doing a PhD in environmental health. So like it's went beyond the social and economic aspects now. Now a lot of people are talking about like the how the whole environment is affecting human and wildlife and like animal health. So now like during, as you mentioned, COVID was kind of like COVID time happened, and then everyone started thinking, we we didn't invest enough in let's say in public health or in epidemiology. I remember like it kind of clicked with me. I remember we were in a big meeting in like a divisional level, like 4 or 5 districts, and they were talking about there were no, like in the whole province there were, I'm not saying like no, but there was not enough competent epidemiologists to lead the government in that program. So at that time I said, oh, we need more, like people who are know about like infectious disease epidemiology, disease modeling, and environmental health and all those things. So that's how I got interested in environmental health, to do a PhD in environmental health, so that I know more about like how the changing ecological conditions, like changing ecology, like let's say deforestation, building dams and all those things, like changing temperatures, changing humidity, changing rainfall patterns, how they are affecting diseases. So now, and also air pollution, which is a big thing in South Asia, both in Pakistan and India. Air pollution is bad, and it's kind of like
Destructive.
yeah, it is. And we like still people are not like kind of tackling that in a way it should be. We don't have the resources maybe, but I don't know, like it's a bad thing. So all these things motivated me to do PhD in environmental health, and currently I'm working on
Mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes and so overall it's like mosquitoes and vector-borne diseases, like we would have heard. I think leishmaniasis and not common, but it's in India and Pakistan too. Both the cutaneous and the visceral leishmaniasis, it's called Kala Azar fever in India. They like one of my research is about sandflies and like how sandflies. So sandfly population is increased and decreased due to land use changes. So overall, like I'm working on the Chagas disease. It's also vector-borne diseases, vector-borne disease, then mosquito-borne diseases, and sandflies. So, and how all these things are related to land use and land cover changes.
To stop you here, what do you mean by land use?
Yeah, that's what I'm explaining. So land use and land cover changes, like previously there was a forest, let's say, and there was like a logging company, or they just completely took it off and made let's say something out of that, like it became urbanized. So urbanization is in land use change. Building a big dam, it happened in India a lot, like there was like big dams.
Even during nearest period.
I know it's like everyone was talking about dams and stuff at that time. So but that changed a lot of like ecology of diseases. So there, and then deforestation, then intensive agriculture field, like monoculture cropping. Previously, I mean, people were like, it was called kind of like everything was growing at the same time. Not only rotation, like everything was growing at the same time. But now we do monoculture cropping, like it's either soya bean or maize or wheat and all those things. So corn. So all these things. So that is kind of land use change. And then another thing is landscape disturbance, where it's like when you do all this stuff, you go into the forest, into the wildlife, so you disturb those areas. So that's how a lot of pathogens come. Like if you have you heard about Ebola, so Ebola and a lot of like emerging and re-emerging disease like Nipah virus. So all these diseases come, Zika too, like all these diseases come because of our interaction with pathogens and with wildlife. So, but basically, I'm working on how these land use and land cover changes will impact vector-borne diseases and vector population, and then vector-borne diseases. It's really complex. You have to use a lot of like statistical modelings and like satellite data. So it's just, like remotely sensed data in GIS. So I'm learning all these things now. So hopefully I'm done with it in a couple of years.
You're doing a real impactful and very challenging and complicated, complex research.
Thank you so much.
And you mentioned about this land use change and about the vector-borne diseases. How is flooding affecting this? Because Pakistan experienced a major flood this year. Can you throw some light about climate change, flooding, and how it's affecting the health?
Yeah, I think it's like the whole. Yeah, I mean, like when there is flooding, so it is increases the chances of breeding for mosquitoes. And I think, I mean, I don't have done a research on it, but after the flood or during around that time, there was big dengue outbreaks in a lot, dengue fever outbreaks in a lot of places in Pakistan. So mosquitoes, like when there is normal, then more rainfalls and there is like flooding, so it does several things for public health. One, all these like fecal-oral diseases, diarrheal diseases can become common. Then like vector-borne diseases like mosquitoes population increase. Then another thing is like infrastructure, like health infrastructure is just damaged. So if people get sick, where would they go? So disasters do that a lot. So I think with climate change, you have to talk about all these aspects at the same time, not only just the increasing temperature or rainfall patterns, but when flood happens, so another flood happens, so it can destroy health infrastructure and also livelihood of people. Like as you mentioned, so let's say 1/4 or 1/3 of the country was flooded.
Yes.
So people lost all the crops. What was there, like the standing crops that they sowed and everything. So they lost all that. So in the next 6-7 months, how would it play out for them economically? It's bad.
Right.
Like obviously they would lose all the things. So like let's say
That in turn is going to affect their health seeking.
yeah. So that's what I was saying. Like health seeking behavior too, and like their economics too. So yeah, there. And I think as you mentioned, the climate change. So a lot of these vector-borne diseases are changing its latitude. Like it's going up north now.
Yes.
Like the place that I am from, we didn't have, let's say, the big dengue outbreaks until 2014. And 2013-14, around that time, it started to invade because the mosquito that is carrying, there was like a lot of favorable conditions for that because of the increasing temperature, increasing humidity and all those things. So like let's say we can take the example of dengue. Dengue's incident increased almost 50 times in the last 3 decades, 50 times. And now like around they're it's like increasing its outreach, and now more than like millions and millions of cases are getting people are getting infected. And I think almost the half of the world is vulnerable to dengue cases, dengue infections. So and also like some diseases that were kind of like eliminated, like let's say yellow fever, and those diseases are also coming up because of all these changes happening. Same with malaria too. Like let's say in highlands in some places, like let's say Kenya, it's kind of the malaria was not there, but now because of changes, it's happening in India too.
Yeah, so because I worked in a hilly region for a year, so there has not historically there has been zero malaria dengue cases. It's rabies free as well. But then now there's no. I mean, rabies is not a problem now. But then these vector-borne diseases, malaria, dengue cases are coming up, and I was diagnosed with dengue as well. So series of, I mean, it's emerging.
Yeah, it's re-emerging.
Yeah, not just latitudes, the altitude that in Kenya as well. So that pattern of diseases in the south is also changing. Even within small places, there is micro changes here and there, and we are just not looking at the big picture. We see it individually as one malaria case, one heat wave, one flooding, but the big picture is that it's all climate change.
Climate change and other ecological changes coupled with that too. Like it's kind of really complex, but still it's not only just temperature changes or just rainfall patterns, humidity, but all these different kind of habitat changes, habitat loss, habitat fragmentation, and land use changes, land cover changes, and all these coupled with each other and then causing this mix of diseases.
So you're saying that it's something bigger than climate change. So you're saying that it's capitalism.
Yeah, it's the whole, the consumerism.
Consumerism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are ending the episode with this. And thank you so much for talking with us for almost an hour. And it has been a really insightful talk. We have touched about personal life as well as the big picture, socio-political angle, which is all public health is about. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was really good. I enjoyed my conversation.
Nice.
All right, thank you.
Okay. இது அன்பாக்ஸ் பப்ளிக் ஹெல்த் தொடர்ந்து பொது சுகாதாரம் பேசுவோம். நன்றி, வணக்கம், ஜெய்பிங்.